Today on Ministry Monday, I am speaking with Brother Louis Canter. Hi, Brother Louis. How are you?
Good, Amanda. How are you doing?
I'm doing well today. Thank you for chatting with us on the podcast today.
Glad to do it.
Well, you're no stranger to the podcasts. I've been able to chat with you a few times now on the podcast about different things like empowering lay leadership and baptismal call. But today I invited you to chat, and you were thankfully willing, because we're doing a small thread of episodes called the Story Series, and just hearing about pastoral ministers and how they began in their journey for pastoral ministry and how it has developed over time. So thank you for being willing to chat with us today.
Glad to do that.
Now, before we get started into chapter one, if someone's listening on the episode and they definitely, maybe they haven't listened to any of the episodes, would you mind introducing yourself and kind of letting us know where you are right now and how you're currently serving?
Sure. So I am Louis Canter, Brother Louis Canter. I currently live in Winter Haven, Florida. Most of my ministerial life was in Detroit, Michigan. I retired from full-time ministry 3 years ago already. But it does, I just reimagine myself, is what I say. So most of my ministry in the last 10 years has been more toward pastoral ministry. And specifically now I do part-time ministry in hospitals as an employed chaplain. So I visit people in their rooms. I'm on call at night. And so when I get a call at night, usually that's an indication that something serious is occurring. And so I have to be there with the family and the patient, and especially if the patient dies. So that's primarily what I'm doing. Lesser, still composing, still doing some retreat work and concerts. So I just did some concerts for Advent. And now just chilling today. This is actually a day off for me, which is kind of rare, even being reimagined.
I was going to say, even though you started that conversation by saying you're retired, doesn't really sound like you're retired very much here, Brother Louis. It sounds like you're doing plenty still.
Well, as long as I can, I want to. And then I know there will be a time when I can't any longer and be able to look back and say, I'm glad that I was able to do those things
That's
that I
great.
could do.
That's wonderful. Well, let's start from the beginning. So Brother Louis, how did you get involved in pastoral ministry in general from the beginning?
Well, I would have to say that it started when I was in high school. I went to the minor seminary when I was 16 at Franciscans, um, then St. John the Baptist province, and already could play the piano. So, and was learning how to play the organ. So, was swiftly grabbed by the friars and asked to begin to help with the liturgies. An exciting time because this was in the early 70s when Vatican II was being implemented. And so we were, so especially because we were a seminary, we were able to do a lot of experimentation with instruments and music and style. So I would say, probably the first generation of the English music, traditional, but they wanted us to start the guitar mass. That's what they called it, guitar mass. And so the Ray Rep and Joe Wise and all of that was all part of my language. And so that began really a lifelong ministry within music. So whether it was with the friars or when I left in 1990, working in parishes, that had all been a part. And I have the friars to thank for a very incredible formation and opportunity to experiment and learn what good liturgy could be. And so influenced heavily by, then it was the St. Louis Jesuits, and then, Marty Hagen and the group of people that came from there. But there was a very strong stream of African American gospel music. And that was introduced to me by a box of music that had in it music from Clarence Rivers, and that started a whole other aspect of music in my journey. So throughout my life, I've been able to use all of that, and it's been great. Great. It's been a great experience. Probably the highlight was being able to help other musicians in the Archdiocese of Detroit as the director of music for them for 7 years, and being able to host in 2010 the NPM convention in Detroit after a little dry spell there of Detroit hosting.
Wow, that's great. Now, if someone's listening and they were not an active pastoral minister, music minister, or otherwise, right at the cusp of the change of the Second Vatican Council, how would you describe the liturgy at that point? I mean, of course, you shared so many different musical influences that were happening. What was the
Mhm.
atmosphere like in ministry too at that time?
Well, it was really explosive because especially for those of us that were in formation, but then, we were also lay people. And to know that we had a voice, I remember sitting around the table with priests and later bishops, and knowing that we were doing collaborative ministry. So the paradigm shift from the top down, at least my experience in the beginning, was very collaborative. Everybody had an equal voice. That was exciting, especially as a young person coming into ministry, to know that we had a voice. Now, that might sound kind of strange for us now because that's something that's kind of maybe a given. But back then, that was not.
Hmm.
And to say, well, gee, what would you think about doing X or that? And someone staring at you going, that's not a bad idea. Why don't we try that out?
Hmm.
And that was great. And I tried very hard in the ministry that I was involved in, either in leadership, to keep that kind of collaborative understanding going, because I felt that that was important. That's how we learn. And some of the stuff worked great, some of the stuff didn't, but we learned from it, and that was okay. We went to the extreme for a while, and then like anything that happens, as the '80s and '90s kind of it happened, we began to kind of bring things back into focus. Like, well, we shouldn't be doing stuff like that, or we shouldn't be doing those kind of things, and then just isn't good liturgy. Um, it feels good maybe, but it's not good liturgy, and so we need
Hmm.
to start looking at what defines that. And the documents that were coming out at the same time helped us kind of bring us into what I call good boundaries. To set good boundaries. I mean, there's a lot of creativity that can happen within that.
So you mentioned, of course, that you are currently in Florida and you served in the Archdiocese of Detroit as well. What other dioceses or archdioceses have you been able to minister in?
Well, I traveled a lot, so I was in Chicago for a while. I was in Lafayette, Indiana, for a while. Here in Orlando, certainly have been able to serve in the diocese here. I'm trying to think. But those are the major ones.
Hmm.
And so, whether I was just doing, I mean, of course, if I'm traveling in other dioceses to do concerts and things,
Hmm.
I call those flyby events. So those
Hmm.
those aren't really, you don't really do too much, but in these particular dioceses, I was able to help or minister in those for a while.
Hmm. Okay, great. So of course you are now a brother in the ecumenical community. So would you mind sharing with us how you came to make that decision for yourself to become a brother in the ecumenical community and what your official title is and what that is?
Sure. So I was with the Franciscan, the first Order Francis, up until 1990, and I chose to leave at that time. I took some time off, but really felt that I wanted and needed to be a part of a community, because it was so ingrained in me, and it was like it didn't feel right. And so a friar suggested to me, "What about you checking into the Ecumenical Franciscans?" So I did. They are so I have in the community anyone from Catholic Church all the way to Quakers and everything in between that is part of our order. So the premise is that we all focus on Franciscan spirituality and the charism of Francis, but we live them out according to our own faith tradition. So I have it easy because I'm Catholic. Well, Francis was Catholic, so that makes it kind of easy for me. But I think for some of my brothers and sisters, it may be a little more difficult for them to identify with some aspects of Francis. So, but it's a dispersed order, which means that we live independently. Although I am connected to them very strongly through prayer and praying for individuals every day, being connected through social media. We gather once a year in St. Louis for a week to talk about um, whatever we're doing, profess people, looking at our own rules and principles, and seeing what it is that we want to do. So, kind of an open community, and I felt really good about that. So, the way it works for us is there's a principle number 3, which states that we are to remain faithful in our own faith tradition. So I chose to do that. It works for me. And I live a vowed life. I'm accountable to another member of the order that I have to check in about 4 times a year and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I have an annual review of my rule and adjust it according to where things are going in my life and my spiritual life. So I like that. It works.
Have you found it easy, difficult, about the same to continue being a music minister within that context as well?
It's always difficult when it just depends on just where I'm working. I have to a lot of times explain what that means to say I'm an ecumenical Catholic friar or Franciscan, because many times we don't understand what ecumenical means. And so it's an opportunity to maybe do a little education. But, I just say, hey, I'm a Franciscan. I belong to an ecumenical community, and they hold me accountable to be the best Catholic I can be. And most of the time, that kind of smooths the road a little bit so that people understand I'm still Catholic, if I'm especially working in a Catholic institution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If you don't mind me asking this question, what does it mean to you to be the best Catholic that you can be?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't want to answer it. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what that means. I think for myself, I've been asking myself that question a lot, just given, I'm, getting a little older, and so I need to ask those questions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things is to be faithful to who God's called me to be, first and foremost, not what other people want me to be, not what other people or I think people want me to be. I really believe the best that I can be is who God is calling me to be first. The second is for me to look at Jesus, the Gospels, and to try to live the Gospels the best way I can. And I find Francis' spirituality to be what I prefer, because, Francis' whole life was about emptying himself so that God could fill him up. And the more he emptied himself, the more he was able to be transformed into who God was calling him to be, as Francis. And so I kind of like that. Now, it's not easy, and I screw it up a lot of times. But that's really what I think being a good Catholic is. I don't think it's being wedded to an institution. I think I ride a tricycle, to use the scripture, tradition, and experience. And the head is the experience, then the left wheel is tradition, the other is scripture, and that's the best I can do. So that would be my honest answer.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You also are a part of the Franciscan Ministry of Peace with Jim. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, be glad to. So, Franciscan Ministry of Peace is born out of the experience of the the Assisi that it occurred in 1986, where the spirit of Assisi, when Pope John Paul II called all the different faith traditions to come together and to pray for the gift of peace in their own way. And I believe that was so awesome, and it really stuck with me when I heard about it. And so we started a 501c3 ministry based on that. So it takes Nostra Aetate, the document from 1963, I think it is, from Pope Paul VI, that event with John Paul II, and then the work that I had been doing throughout my life with interfaith dialogue and interfaith encounters. So really, we're interfaith. We pray for peace. We work for peace. We teach peace. We eat and sleep and drink peace in terms of building that. In fact, we're just getting even ready to do a little walk from where our ministry starts to a Franciscan Center in Tampa. And it's just only 54 miles. It's not a big deal. But we want to put our prayer to action. To quote Pope Francis, go ahead and pray for it. Whatever it is you're praying for, then act upon it. And so we've been praying for peace. So we're just going to walk with a little sign that says peace. And we're going to walk for 4 days, I think it is, 3 or 4 days, walking 15 miles a day. And all we're going to do is pray for peace and walk and take a stand. So, I mean, that's just one thing that we do, but we do a lot of stuff on social media with praying for peace, and workshops and things like that.
I know you say that it's only 54 miles, but I don't really know anyone who just walks 15 miles a day casually. So I would say that's still quite the undertaking. That's very commendable.
Well, anyone that wants to walk with us or even virtually walk or pray with us, the whole point is to pray for peace. And we certainly live in a time and space where we really need to be praying for peace for one another, for ourselves, for our country, and for the common home that God has given us.
I absolutely agree. I do. Well, let's transition a little bit now into a more musical realm. So you mentioned, of course, you were in Detroit and you helped with the NPM convention during your time there. Can you recall, how did you find NPM in the first place?
Wow. You want to know when I found out? This is going to be, I'm aging myself, but that's okay. So I was in Rensselaer, Indiana, and they had, I'm not sure if it was the full convention or partial convention or whatever, but they were going to have the convention at Rensselaer College. And Thea Bowman was one of the speakers. And so I remember that was my first encounter with NPM. And I remember she was doing something on Psalms, and she had a little auto harp that she was playing, and she just kind of played and sang with these Psalms that she had brought to. I don't remember much of the talk. I just remember her presence and remember what she was doing. And because we were hosting this convention type thing, some of us were selected to play a concert, an organ concert. And so I remember we were supposed to play, I think it was like 8 o'clock at night, and it wound up being like 10.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
So they were a little loose on the schedule there, but and I was young enough that I could handle that, but I couldn't do that now. But that was my first encounter with NPM. And then off and on for a number of years until probably early 2000s, and then I started going every year.
Wow. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful.
So, and that was one reason why, when I was director of music for the diocese, I wanted to have the convention there if there was a way we could do it. And we did.
Why has NPM been important to you as a music minister? What has it brought to you over the years?
I think it's brought friendships. I mean, there's something about community and talking with other people, about the work that we do and how we do it, getting ideas, and certainly the education is important. the input. I mean, again, earlier in those early years, especially, NPM was right on the edge of seeing that we did good liturgy and taught us, what that could be like. And I was, like I said, I was sporadic and up until 2000. So, um, but even afterwards, going to particular workshops and things like that to learn more was great. So that the friendships, those kinds of things were great, great opportunities, good experiences.
Why do you think NPM is important now today? We're celebrating 50th anniversary of NPM. What makes it important in the life of the church today?
I believe because it's been around for 50 years, it has a wisdom. It has a wisdom that people can potentially grab a hold of. When you start looking at, I would imagine that there'll be archives of things and whatnot, and to be able to go back and see the history of liturgy that we at NPM have been a part of, and have nurtured. How many generations of musicians now have grown through those 50 years, and what wisdom is still being imparted by those of us who have been there from the beginning. And what do the young music ministers have to share with those of us who have been around a while, in terms of passing on enthusiasm and dreams, and where they feel the ministry is going for them. Plus, justice. I mean, to learn what it means to get a just wage and how to go about doing that. I mean, some of the very practical things, if we didn't have that, I wonder, and NPM is different than AGO. So both of them have a very important part to play in the overall picture of the musical life of the church. But they're distinct, and there's something that's different, that we share as NPM.
I agree. Well, I would like to just mention here, too, of course, our convention is this summer in Washington, D.C., 50th anniversary, but also our 48th convention. Are you attending? Are you planning on coming?
I am still processing that. I just have to look and see how the shekels come together.
Okay. Well, I hope you do. And I want to thank you for chatting with us right now and sharing your journey and sharing some of the ways that God has spoken through you, through your ministry, in the many forms it has taken over your life. It's very clear to me that I think one of the things I really have always liked about chatting with you, Brother Louis, is your openness. You always seem very open to whatever God is calling in your life right now. And as I hear your story, that is affirmed in my mind.
Well, I mean, that's our journey, right? God speaks. I hope I'm listening, and if I don't listen properly, I also know that God is big enough to be able to fix what I messed up. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't go too far because I know that he's not that far away. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that helps, I think, in just overall discernment and trust.
Mm-hmm.
No one's perfect. None of us are,
Right.
but He is.
That's right. That's right. As my mom always says, God sees around every corner. That's always given me a lot of hope throughout the days. So, well, thank you for being a part of the story series here on Ministry Monday. Thank you for sharing your story a little bit, and thank you for all the ways you have ministered and continue to minister.
Thank you very much, and God bless you, Amanda, and all the things that you're doing and will do, especially with the upcoming convention.
Thank you.